Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. I've loaded it up with applications, I've tested its thermals, its battery, even accidentally its strength. I've taken 435 photos with this camera. So, here's what I think. I still remember picking the phone up for the first time just a few weeks ago and thinking, they've done it. This is how an Ultra phone should feel. And even now that the dust has settled, every time I take this out of my pocket, I'm internally nodding my head thinking, yeah, this feels right. It could do with being a bit less slippery, and the huge camera module does get in the way a bit when trying to game, but I'm nitpicking. For me, it's almost perfect. And I could say that about a lot of things with this phone. The size feels just right. I wouldn't make it bigger because it only just fits in my hand, but I also wouldn't make it smaller, because when you've used a screen like this, you don't want to go back. The thickness feels just right, and though it might not look like it, the weight is surprisingly evenly distributed. The bezels have practically disappeared, the S Pen has finally achieved its original objective of feeling truly like pen on paper, although I am still confused as to why they shifted it to the left of the phone, and the screen is so bright that I couldn't even find a lighting condition in which it wasn't clearly visible. This display genuinely is a masterpiece. You set a good wallpaper on this phone and it feels like you're holding an edgeless digital tapestry. And interacting with it is a joy too, because Samsung's haptics are amazing. Plus, it comes with some of the best news that Samsung has ever announced with a new phone, that these phones are going to get 3 years of guaranteed software updates. Compared to the S20 Ultra earlier this year, they've toned down their marketing, they've toned down their claims, they've toned down their price, while at the same time actually delivering more value. So what I'm trying to say here is that this feels like, and I don't use this term lightly, a perfect Samsung phone. Oh, and if you're enjoying this video, by the way, a sub to the channel would be phenomenal. Take the cameras. Now, admittedly, it is tough to get excited about a camera that's almost the same as the one on a phone I ditched a few months ago, but this has one important perk over the S20 Ultra, in that the camera feels lighter. Faster shutter speed, quicker, less janky zooming, and way faster focusing thanks to the new laser autofocus module. Not perfect focusing still, but far better. Plus, the phone itself is just physically less heavy, so that contributes to this feeling of lightness. The selfies are good too, aided further by the fact that you can now hold your phone further away than normal and still take a photo by using the S Pen. So these are actually some of the widest selfies you can get right now. It's still not as reliable as the iPhone camera when you're taking portraits, for example, but 98% of the time that I've taken this phone out to capture something, I've been at least satisfied with the result. The 2% of times where I did have a problem were often just because of how this 108 megapixel sensor produces images. Because it has a very narrow plane of focus, I found myself a few times taking photos of things that are closer up, thinking I'd got it completely in focus, when actually a part of it is ever so slightly out of focus. It's a camera system that, while I'm sure it could be better, and one where I'm sure they will find ways to improve it in the future, I've got very little to complain about. In fact, probably my biggest complaint is just the fact that it doesn't seem to know when to switch to the telephoto camera. See, when you're zooming into things, it should switch as soon as you pass 5 times zoom to maintain quality, but sometimes I've had to get to 11 times zoom before the phone finally realizes, oh yeah, we should probably change lenses now. Also, massively underrated feature is the new Samsung DeX. This went from first needing a specialized dock just to work, to then needing just a cable, to now needing nothing. And it's probably one of the use cases that truly shows the power of the phone. Being able to show your photo album while playing a YouTube video and doing 5 other things at the same time really is quite cool. However, the reason I say this is a perfect Samsung phone, and not just a perfect phone, is that I do have problems with it. There are things I don't like, and pretty much all of those things are just Samsung being Samsung. Like how they choose to add these sharp corners on the Note phones to distinguish them from the S phones, and they do make the phone a bit jabby. Like how the camera does take amazing photos, but how it insists on smoothing out faces when taking portrait mode shots. Like the fact that Samsung software seems intent on making you swallow every single Samsung service available, and it just bundles in so much junk, so much low quality content, which can't be good for battery life either. The game launcher has these game recommendations, and they're straight out of 2014, with a lot of them not even being available in my country. Even for Samsung's internet browser, why are half the recommendations in what I can only assume is Korean? Also, Samsung have just made their phones quite confusing. In some regions, this is a 4G phone. In others, it's a 5G phone. In some regions, you get the Snapdragon 865 Plus chipset, literally the best that Android has to offer. But In other regions, you get the Exynos 990, which is about as good as the Snapdragon from last year. For some people, the base model will have 256 gigs of storage. Great, but in others you'll get 128. I even found out that if you live in some regions like Pakistan, or if you go for the LTE variant, the Note 20 Ultra starts at 8 GB of RAM. In 2020, you can get a phone with Lite in its name that has 8 GB of RAM. This lineup is so confusing that if you want to know how good the Note 20 Ultra actually is, then you've almost got to make sure that you only read articles that are coming from the country that you're planning on buying the phone in. Otherwise, you're kind of looking at a different phone. So the issue that brings to us here in the UK is that the Exynos chip we get is not particularly battery efficient. Day to day I did feel like it was lasting a little longer than my S20 Ultra did, but just to make sure I did do a side-by-side with a brand new Exynos S20 Ultra. I set both phones to equal brightness and just cycled through applications. And I mean, the Note was ahead, but very slightly, literally 1 percentage point. So the battery life is good, not great. Then again, from what I've seen from my friends in the US, the Note 20 Ultra over there can last up to an hour more of screen on time. The charging speed is fine, but does slow to a crawl as the battery is nearly full. So the takeaway of all of this is really quite simple. Here's the Note versus most of its competition. And actually, right off the bat, we can get rid of the S20 Ultra just because of how this is similar, but better. The Oppo Find X2 Pro is actually pretty similar spec-wise, and does charge way faster than the Note, but I would side with Samsung mostly because of the screen on this bad boy. I would get rid of the ROG phone as well, because the Note's cameras are better, and the form factor way nicer. But this is actually quite a close one, because I really appreciate the mega battery on the ROG. In fact, the Note's cameras are also far more reliable than Sony's Xperia 1 II, so let's drop that. And we can also remove the Xiaomi, as for the time being, it's a China-only model, and the Huawei P40 Pro Plus for most users because of the lack of Google apps. So, that leaves us with the OnePlus 8 Pro, a great pro-level phone for less, the iPhone 11 Pro Max if iOS is your platform of choice, although it might make sense at this stage to wait for the iPhone 12 series coming soon, and the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, as my phone of choice right now, if budget isn't an issue. Providing you're okay with the fact that this is very much a Samsung experience, the way it takes photos, the software, the slight extra Exynos battery drain, then this really is Samsung's pinnacle, the culmination of years of redesigns and problem fixes. It does make me dream about what this phone could have been had we had clean Google Pixel software and Google's image processing algorithm, but we have what we have. And actually, I'm kind of curious, where do you go from here? What is Samsung going to bring us next? Because of how with tech there are diminishing returns to almost everything, I couldn't see Samsung increasing screen resolution further, or making the refresh rate higher for quite a long time, so I guess I'm just kind of curious where Samsung is going to take these phones in the future such that they're still keeping the average consumer engaged. Because this feels so close to the perfect bar phone that we imagined when smartphones started. Maybe it'll be through foldables, maybe something else entirely, but for now, the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra is a go, especially if you can get the Snapdragon version. If you enjoyed this video, a sub would be incredible. My name is Aaron, this is Mr. Who's the Boss, and I'll catch you